Nobody saw this coming. While most NFL rookies were busy waiting for their first paycheck to clear, one name quietly broke the system. Shedeur Sanders didn't just launch merch, he erased it. In less than 10 minutes, his entire SS2 collection vanished from shelves. Not low stock, not selling fast, completely gone. And what happened behind the scenes? That's where things get even crazier. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. Not to a rookie, not before week 1, not on a random morning drop. Yet at exactly 10:00 a.m., the site went live, and by 10:08, fans had already wiped out inventory that Nike expected to last days. Some reports claim servers didn't just slow down, they flat out crashed. Corporate dashboards lit up with sellout alerts faster than anyone could process them. And suddenly, executives realized something massive was unfolding in real time. Here's the part that shocked insiders the most. The buying frenzy wasn't coming from traditional NFL fans. It wasn't just jersey collectors or hometown supporters. The traffic was global. Gen Z flooded the site. International buyers jumped in. And women reportedly made up nearly half of the purchases. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen from rookie hype. That's a cultural takeover. And it gets even deeper. While fans were flexing screenshots of confirmation emails, whispers started circulating inside Nike. Emergency meetings, executives scrambling, internal data showing conversion rates higher than athletes who have been dominating the league for years. Some insiders even suggested this launch outperformed multiple star campaigns combined. If that's true, it means Shedeur didn't just outsell rookies. He may have outsold the entire league in one morning. But here's the real question. How did a rookie quarterback pull this off before even proving himself on Sundays? Was it the branding, the legacy, the timing, or was this something much bigger than football? Because what happened next forced major brands to rethink how they evaluate athletes. Contracts started looking outdated overnight. Competitors started panicking. And Shedeur suddenly found himself holding more leverage than most veterans ever see. And once you hear what Nike allegedly had to rush into production after this drop, you'll understand why this moment might be the beginning of a whole new era. At first, it looked like just another product release, a clean drop time, a simple announcement, no flashy countdowns, no massive promo campaign, just Shedeur Sanders quietly pressing go on his SS2 collection. But within seconds, everything changed. Fans rushed in fast, then faster than the system could even keep up with. Orders stacked up so quickly that the site started lagging almost immediately. Some users reported frozen checkout screens. Others refreshed only to see entire sizes vanish in real time. And by the time most people realized what was happening, it was already over. Less than 10 minutes, that's all it took. Warehouses that were stocked to handle days, even weeks of demand were suddenly empty. Internal alerts started firing nonstop. Products that were scheduled to roll out gradually were completely wiped off inventory boards. Even crazier, West Coast buyers were still asleep when most of the collection was already gone. This wasn't a strong rookie debut. This was a system overload. Inside Nike, analysts were staring at dashboards in disbelief. The numbers didn't line up with any previous rookie launch models. Conversion rates spiked to levels normally reserved for limited edition sneaker collaborations, not football merchandise. Every prediction tool they trusted was suddenly useless. And while fans celebrated online, flexing order confirmations and posting reaction clips, the corporate side was spiraling. Logistics teams scrambled to figure out what went wrong. Supply chain managers realized they hadn't prepared nearly enough inventory. What was supposed to be a controlled rollout turned into an all-out scramble to keep up with demand that simply wouldn't slow down. But here, where things get interesting. Because this explosion didn't happen randomly. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't just because of Shedeur's last name. There was a deeper strategy behind this moment, one that most NFL players never even attempt. And once you understand who actually bought this merch and why, the entire picture changes. The public only saw the sellouts, but inside Nike, it was a completely different story. As the orders flooded in, executives reportedly rushed into emergency calls. Live sales dashboards were updating faster than teams could process the data. Some insiders described the atmosphere as pure disbelief, not celebration, not excitement, shock, because this wasn't just strong performance, this was a total breakdown of expectations. Nike's forecasting systems are built using years of athlete launch data. They track behavior patterns, fan engagement, social reach, and projected demand. And according to multiple reports, Shedeur's numbers blew straight through those models. The algorithms didn't predict this kind of response, not even close. One internal comment that allegedly leaked summed it up perfectly. This demand is off the charts in ways we've never seen before. That's when things got serious. Reports began circulating that top-level executives demanded immediate answers. Supply chain leaders were questioned. Distribution managers were pushed to explain why warehouses emptied so fast. Some insiders even claimed Nike had to pause other scheduled product drops just to redirect resources toward restocking Shedeur's line. And the wild part, the data kept climbing even after inventory was gone. Traffic didn't slow down. People kept refreshing. International buyers were still flooding the site hours later. Interest didn't fade, it intensified. This wasn't just about revenue anymore. This was about reputation. When a brand the size of Nike can't keep up with demand, it sends a powerful message. Not failure, but unexpected dominance from the athlete involved. Suddenly, Shedeur wasn't just another rookie client. He became a priority. And that shift happened fast. Because once Nike realized what they were dealing with, they started looking deeper into the buyer breakdown. And what they discovered completely shattered every stereotype they had about NFL merch consumers. And that's where the story takes a sharp turn. When Nike finally slowed things down enough to analyze the data, the results caught everyone off guard. This wasn't the usual NFL crowd. Normally, football merch is dominated by hardcore team fans, mostly older demographics and buyers who wait to see performance before committing. But Shedeur's drop told a completely different story. The biggest surge came from Gen Z, a group known for skipping traditional jerseys and favoring lifestyle brands instead. And that alone raised eyebrows. But then another stat started circulating. Women reportedly made up nearly half of the purchases. That's almost unheard of in NFL merchandise launches. It forced Nike to rethink everything they assumed about who football branding actually appeals to. This wasn't about team loyalty. It wasn't about game day gear. It was about image, identity, and culture. And it didn't stop there. International orders poured in from Europe and Asia at a pace more similar to hype sneaker releases than athlete merch. People who had never watched a Browns game were suddenly buying Shedeur Sanders apparel, not because of touchdowns, not because of stats, but because his brand crossed into fashion territory. That's when the bigger picture became impossible to ignore. Shedeur wasn't marketing himself like a traditional quarterback. He wasn't selling football products. He was selling a lifestyle, confidence, ambition, modern style that felt closer to streetwear than stadium wear. And this strategy worked because it didn't feel forced. It felt natural. His social presence, interviews, fashion choices, and public personality had already built the foundation. The merch drop simply unlocked the demand that was waiting underneath the surface. But one element tied all of this together. One symbol that turned casual interest into emotional attachment. Because once fans saw the logo, everything clicked. And that's when the SS crown took over. At first glance, it just looks like a clean design. Two interlocking S's, a subtle crown, simple, sharp, easy to recognize, but behind that symbol was months of strategy. According to reports, Nike's design team went through over a dozen different logo concepts before Shedeur finally approved the one that would become the SS crown. They weren't just trying to make something that looked cool. They were trying to create an identity, something that honored legacy without copying it. The crown wasn't random. It represented confidence, leadership, and a quiet nod to prime time's influence without directly leaning on it. The message was clear. This wasn't about living in someone else's shadow. This was about building something new. And once the logo dropped, it didn't stay on shirts for long. It spread fast. TikTok creators started styling outfits around it. Instagram posts turned it into a flex symbol. Music artists were spotted rocking it. Suddenly, the SS crown wasn't just merch, it became a status piece. Something you wore to signal that you were tapped into the next wave before everyone else caught on. That's how you know a brand has crossed the line from product to culture. People weren't buying fabric, they were buying into an image, a mindset, the idea of betting early on the next superstar. And this shift didn't go unnoticed. While Nike was scrambling to restock, competitors were watching closely, very closely, because what Shedeur pulled off exposed a massive gap in how brands evaluate athletes. And once those numbers leaked across the industry, panic started spreading. Once word got out about the sales numbers, the energy across the industry shifted almost overnight. Other major brands didn't waste time. Emergency strategy meetings were reportedly called. Executives started combing through data, trying to figure out how Nike landed a cultural goldmine while everyone else watched from the sidelines. Because this wasn't just about losing one athlete deal, this was about missing the next generation blueprint. For years, brands followed the same playbook. Draft the rookie, wait 2 or 3 seasons, see if performance justifies major marketing investment, then build the brand slowly. Shedeur flipped that formula upside down. He proved that cultural influence can move faster than on-field results, that social presence, personal branding, and audience connection can generate revenue before the first snap is even played. And that scared a lot of people. Because if one rookie could trigger this kind of response, it meant dozens of untapped athletes were being undervalued. It meant scouting departments needed to expand beyond highlight tapes. Now they had to study engagement metrics, audience demographics, and digital influence. Some insiders even suggested that future draft evaluations may start factoring brand potential alongside athletic ability. Not publicly, of course, but behind closed doors. That conversation has already started. Meanwhile, Nike wasn't celebrating. They were racing. Racing to restock inventory. Racing to lock down production slots. Racing to stay ahead of competitors who suddenly realized they let the next big wave slip right through their hands. But while brands scrambled, something even bigger was happening behind the scenes. Shedeur's contract structure wasn't built for this level of success. And within days, it started looking outdated. When Shedeur signed his original deal, it was designed for a normal rookie trajectory, steady growth, gradual exposure, performance-based bonuses kicking in over time. What nobody expected was for those triggers to start firing almost immediately. Within the first wave of sales, insiders claim Shedeur had already blown past multiple incentive benchmarks tied to engagement and merchandise performance. The revenue spike reportedly forced both sides back to the table far earlier than planned. Because the numbers didn't make sense anymore. His contract wasn't built for someone generating superstar-level demand in their first week. That put Nike in a tricky position. On one hand, they needed to protect their margins. On the other hand, they couldn't afford to let this momentum slip. The balance of power shifted fast, and Shedeur suddenly held serious leverage. This wasn't just about money. It was about control. Control over branding decisions, creative direction, future product releases, even how and when drops would be scheduled. For most rookies, those choices belong to the corporation. For Shedeur, the situation flipped. His team reportedly began pushing for long-term structural changes instead of short-term payouts. More ownership, more flexibility, more upside. The kind of negotiating position veteran superstars usually fight years to earn. And Nike didn't push back much. Because at this point, walking away wasn't an option. They weren't dealing with a promising athlete anymore. They were dealing with a fast-growing cultural asset. But here, the reality check. Hype doesn't survive without performance. Merch can sell once, maybe twice, but sustained demand requires something else entirely. And that's where Shedeur had to prove this wasn't just marketing magic. Fans are smarter than brands give them credit for. They can tell when something is manufactured, when hype is forced, when a campaign is built on nothing but flashy edits and empty promises. And that's exactly why Shedeur's momentum feels different. It isn't just about merch. It's about what people are seeing on the field. Training camp reports started surfacing almost immediately. Coaches praising his decision-making, teammates pointing out his leadership in the huddle, analysts highlighting his accuracy and composure under pressure. None of this guarantees superstardom, but it confirms one important thing. He belongs. And that matters more than any marketing campaign. Because fans don't invest emotionally in athletes they don't believe in. They don't rep logos for players who feel artificial. They rally behind confidence that feels real, ambition that doesn't sound scripted. Shedeur checks those boxes. His energy isn't loud, it's controlled, focused, the kind that signals long-term mindset instead of short-term clout. That's why people aren't just buying shirts, they're buying into potential. They're betting early on the idea that this isn't a one-season story, that this isn't a flash of internet fame, that this could be the foundation of something much bigger. And that belief creates momentum no ad campaign can replicate. But now comes the biggest question of all. What does this moment actually mean for the future? Because if Shedeur performs the way fans expect, this launch won't be remembered as a cool merch drop. It'll be remembered as the beginning of a new era. At the end of the day, everything comes back to one thing. Football. No amount of merch sales, branding, or hype can survive if the performance doesn't match the moment. And that's why Shedeur's situation is so different from most viral athletes. Because this wave isn't built on fantasy. It's built on visible progress. Early camp footage shows tight mechanics, quick reads, calm decision-making under pressure. Coaches have openly praised his work ethic. Teammates trust him in the huddle. And fans are watching closely, not just for highlights, but for consistency. That's the real test. Because once the season starts, every throw matters. Every drive becomes fuel for the brand or friction against it. But here's the thing. Shedeur doesn't look like someone overwhelmed by expectations. He looks comfortable inside them, almost like he's been preparing for this spotlight his entire life. And that's why people are buying in so early. Not because he's perfect, not because he's guaranteed greatness, but because he carries himself like someone who believes he's next. This moment isn't about one merch drop. It isn't about breaking rookie sales records. It's about rewriting the blueprint. Shedeur just showed the world that athletes don't have to wait for permission anymore. You can build the brand first, build the culture first, and force the industry to catch up. Now the only question left is how far this goes. If he delivers on Sundays, this won't be remembered as a viral launch. It'll be remembered as the birth of a powerhouse athlete brand, the kind that changes how rookies are valued, how contracts are structured, how fans connect to players. And if that happens, this was never just the beginning of a season. It was the beginning of an empire.